Alright, welcome back everyone to the Busher Rumble Online 2022 Weiss Schwarz EU Tournament. We are just finished round one. We saw the creator clash between Weiss Tea Time and Honest Weiss Schwarz, which did end in Weiss Tea Time's victory. And we're going to jump on straight into round two. So, Leon, what do you think we want to see in round two?
Right, so round two we have a Ruby deck versus a Danmachi deck. So we talked about Danmachi earlier already. Danmachi, obviously, it just came out in July. It's a deck that usually plays 12 events, and I'm looking on my side here, this is the same deck as well. Basically what they want to do is power every turn, their characters reach really high ceilings, even at level 1 for 0 cost, and just loop that every turn, right? They get the events back, they just do it again, and then once they're level 3 and chipped away at their opponent a bit, they're gonna try and attempt to finish with their Hastia. While the Ruby deck, Ruby is one of those sets that has a lot of different ways to build it. And maybe we can look at the Ruby deck, if you don't mind.
Jump straight into the deck list and talk about it.
Yeah, because I think it has some really interesting things we could talk about.
Yeah, so the Ruby deck is being piloted by Alexander, who has... I think they've joined the Weiss community fairly recently, like within the last year or so, but they've already become fairly well known. They've made a name for themselves. They're quite active. So it's definitely a name I recognize. I've seen them around before. And yeah, they've gone with Choice Standby Ruby, but it's not the standby you'd expect to see. So he's playing almost full Team Juniper there. He's got the Pyro level 3 restanding combo, as opposed to the Ruby Clock Kick and Burn combo. And I really like this a lot because, as you mentioned, decks nowadays are playing more towards the board. They're not trying to be as sneaky or shifty with as Attack on Titan is going to be. So people are leaving stuff on the board more often. And so you just want to have a little bit of extra damage from the restand, as opposed to Ruby, which is just going to a little bit of reach instead. So I think this is really cool. We see a lot of the traditional support cards in Ruby at the level 0, like the Lee Ren and the Cinder. But yeah, this deck is a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more low to the ground and focused. And because he doesn't need to play the memory package in the form of the level 0 Pyrrha or the level 1 Pyrrha, it gives him more slots to play other tech options, like say the one of 3-2 James that we don't usually see very often, or the 3-2 Glinda that we don't see very often. Quite interesting to see. Any comments from you?
Yeah, I just want to add that he's also playing the Initiation Relic event. You also don't see that very often, but this is also another way for him to get a bit of mill, get stuff from Waiting Room, which is just giving him more options to get stuff to his hand, which with the Jaw on level 1, the Climax combo, that obviously can search if he reverses his opponent. That's just gonna give him way more options to actually get the cards that he needs to hand. So I really like this build. One of my local players actually piloted a Simula build of this, and I'm really looking forward to see what it can do against Danmachi.
Yep, so speaking of Danmachi, let's take a quick look at that list as well. As you mentioned, it's a fairly straightforward deck, being played by SeiyoTennan. Some of you may... SeiyoTennan, slightly spelling on the name there in the title, but again, some of you, he's fairly well known in the community as well. Some of you may know him as Dean. He's quite active in a lot of the social medias, Discords, Twitter, and so on and so forth. And he's playing, like we mentioned, a fairly standard Danmachi list. He's got the 12 events, he's got the Hestia combo, he's got the Bell level 1, which is aiming to get the events back and then replay those events and just play bells again no matter what. And, two cards I want to highlight here. I think two of the strongest cards in the deck. There's a level 0 Bell, the Qualifications of a Hero. This I think is one of the most incredibly high spec cards that have been printed in the last year. It's basically a +2 for 1 clock, which is absolutely insane. And I think that's one of the strengths of Danmachi, is that because you have Bell to retrieve your pieces and you have the events to regain, to salvage everything back, Danmachi is a deck that just, again, doesn't care what its opponent is doing. It's just going to make the board every turn. It's going to put forward a really huge power during its turn, reverse your opponent's board, and then just fold over and just look for its pieces. And so this is a really consistent deck, really powerful. And he's also got the promo, the skill activation Hestia, which again just gives you that little bit of extra stock, gives you a bit of extra reach, and can really help make the difference when you're running low on resources and you're having to play events every turn. But yeah, the events, you see the Pionkichi, we see the Firebolt, and we see the Hestia Knife. I think we'll discuss exactly what they do as the game goes on. because it looks to me like the players have already started a little bit on. They just gone past turn 1, so we'll jump straight in, and yeah, we can see Alexander I think is on 0-6 and Dean is on 0-3. So I think Alex took turn 1 and had his board revert, well, either used the bell or had his board reversed, and he's going to start his turn 2 at level 1, which I would say is not really relevant for Danmachi. As we say, Danmachi is all about just destroying your opponent's board. So having being level 1 first, you're not getting any extra reverses, and instead you're putting forward a field of bells or whatever. And unless you can deny the reverses from the Jeans, it actually puts you in quite a bit of a questionable position. But we can also see there that Dean had the Yang, the level 0, which I think that profile we refer to as a clean cut. It can save his back rows, so it gives him a bit of extra attack, a bit of extra offense, while also keeping his characters alive.
Right, and also, yeah, like you said, Alexander took the first turn, right? SeiyoTennan took the second turn with the clean cut, doing exactly what you want to do. Not even because just having the clean cut and using it is nice, but you really want to rush Danmachi so that they don't even get the time to just set up the whole combo.
You just want to rush them. The main strength of Danmachi is that it gets to play its events over and over again, and the events are what gives it the compression. But if you don't give them the time to repeatedly play and search for multiple events, they will eventually fall behind because their plussing is very limited otherwise.
Just want to quickly point out the flavor text on the first adventure bell.
Yep.
This is probably what you feel when you're playing against this as a standby deck.
Absolutely. As you watch your standby targets just get reversed out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Bell there gaining a huge amount of power based on the number of events in your waiting room. So like you said, it's pretty much... It's very rare that Bell doesn't reverse its opponent, but then it also just gets reversed again immediately afterwards, and then you have to force salvage the Bell during your turn.
Yeah, but of course for that you have the Pionkichi event that just, salvages one character and gives another character plus 4,000 power for technically one stock, but then you have the red level 1. I'm not quite sure what it's called. I think
it's called Wealth.
Yeah, the Wealth. That just makes your 1/1 salvage event free.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this is just the power of Danmachi. And what's good for Seiryo here is that the first Danmachi turn is happening while Seiryo is still at level 0. So while he is gonna take, or at least maybe take, those direct attacks, his first level 1 turn is gonna get over the bells. And he's not gonna have to worry about finding more characters at first.
Yeah, so Dean there just taking a huge amount of damage. He's also going to be going to level 1. And the other thing I want to point out here is that Alex does have the level 0 bell in his front row. So he can bounce the level 0 bell and bounce one of his level 1 bells to combo again next turn, and also deny reverses from the Jean, which is really powerful here.
Yeah, it's just what you were talking about, right? However, the good thing is that the Jean is choosing the character that gets the on-reversibility. So, they were switched. I see.
Yeah,
so my mistake as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the name mistranslated, but yeah, like you mentioned, John doesn't have to reverse its opponent, and because Dean is going to be leaving at least one character on the board there, Alex is still going to be able to get all 3 searches off with his John if he has them or wants to. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's really the power of the combo. Is that your opponent can try to mitigate it, but if he doesn't have exactly 0 board, it's really hard to do something against it. Right, let's see what Alexander will do here.
The other thing as well with Danmachi we have to consider is that it's not playing counters because it wants to run the Hestia knife for, again, compression and filtering, but Hestia knife doesn't actually give power, which means that bell is just 4/5 and has no way of gaining power during the defensive.
Yeah, so that bell is definitely gonna be it's gonna be the target, right? I mean, exactly. I'm not even sure if you're Dean here you wanna bounce, but probably still correct. But he might just choose to not do it.
I think you definitely want to bounce here just because you want to be able to replay that bell again the next turn. You definitely want to be, even if he's going to be losing his characters, if I'm in Dean's position, I would still play at least one knife, just again, for the milling, the deck compression, the filtering, because that is the main source of plussing that deck has, right? You've got Firebolts, you've got Pionkichis, you've got Hestia knife. almost nothing else in the deck searches or salvages in any way, shape, or form. So if you're not playing events every single turn, you're not sculpting your hand. And if you're not sculpting your hand, you're not getting close to your end goal.
We see him use a drop search here with the Yang framed.
Yep.
I would say he's probably gonna search for his combo, but maybe he doesn't have the climax. He is thinking about it for a rather long time.
Yeah, and I think the one good thing, as I mentioned about this build of Ruby, is that it's a lot more streamlined. We don't usually see this drop search Yang being played, so he has space for it because he's not playing the Pyrrha level 0 or some of these other level 0s that we usually see. And again, by not having to run the Pyrrha level 1, we get to see some other level 1 options like the Glinda, which is just a huge body on the board and could actually maybe try and, because it has hand encore, even if it gets reversed by the Bell during his turn, it still can be that 1/1 high power attacker to fight back with next turn. But nope, he is going to search for his combo there. Maybe he's going to try and draw the climax somehow.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe he already has it and he just was thinking about, does he need it? Maybe he wants something else, like you said. The Glinda might be possible, though I think in this matchup in particular it's not that useful. Since you're paying 1 stock to have a character that sticks on board is maybe fine, but the power boost is not going to do too much, right? Like you said, the bells are just 4,500, they're not going to get boosted by anything. I think the power is not something you worry about here, but
Yep.
maybe, yeah, like we said, maybe he doesn't have the climax and needs to look for a workaround here. He definitely does not want to fall behind in damage though, so maybe here's to hoping that Dean is just gonna use the bounce. Okay, so it looks like Alexander does not have the climax, so he's keeping the combo in hand since he knows it's just gonna get reversed on the backswing from Dean next turn.
I think the other thing to consider as well is that even though we said that John can give the reverse to something else, it's on climax play, so he has to commit to saying, I'm going to give this character the on reverse effects, and then Dean has the ability to bounce because Bell's at the start of attack phase. So wherever Alex gives the reverse effect to, Dean can just bounce them with the Bell.
Yeah, you're right. So it actually is just a perfect counter, and it's not like I said, but it's just the other way around.
Yeah,
so
the only way it works is that he has to split his effects. Basically, he has to say, okay, I'm going to give 1 reverse to each of these 2, and then he only gets 1 reverse because then Dean can only deny 1 reverse. But we see that he does slam a standby instead, and he standbys out the combo, so he's definitely looking to double combo next turn, as we discussed, to split his on reverses.
He might have not even had yellow, right? I can't make it out too well.
Oh, you're right. He actually does. No, I think he does have the. That's the. Is that not the Weiss in his clock in the middle there?
But the Weiss is blue, right?
Oh, it is blue. You're right. Yeah. So, yeah, he doesn't have yellow, so he couldn't play the climax if he wanted to. That's quite unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the reason why he chose to not do it.
Yeah. And here's the really insane thing about Danmachi being able to filter through its event deck with milling and events is that even though Dean leaves 2 open slots here, he just cancels off the both of them and stays on super low damage. And this is an attack. I think Alex is crashing here with his Yang. So Dean was choosing whether or not to play the knife there for milling and compression, but
I think he actually sided.
Ah, right. So
he's probably minimizing damage with this. Probably was contemplating, do I want to deal the 1 extra damage? Does it actually make a difference? And maybe it doesn't, because it's just 1 damage, right?
Well, in this case, he cancelled, so it didn't make a difference. But yeah. I think, like you were saying earlier, right? Like, the way to play against Danmachi is to just try and rush it as much as you can. So, to me, like, that 1 extra damage would have... I would have considered it valuable, because you know that Yang is going off the board no matter what. And so the only reason I think to leave that Yang on the board instead of crashing with it is because you have a lot of climaxes out, and you're just trying to minimize the amount of damage you're taking. Yeah. Which, again, is, like... It is a reasonable option, but I think... You're not trying to play, like, you're playing less of your game and playing more of, like, trying to just outrace your opponent in this particular matchup. So I would have gone for the front there.
Yeah, I think personally I also would have gone for the front. But obviously we don't know his hand. So, like you said, maybe it's just out a lot of climaxes and wants to mitigate some damage.
Yeah, so we'll see how Dean navigates this turn here. He's on very low damage. He's got everything he needs. I think the only thing he needs to find is another copy of the door climax to be able to just keep going. And he does have climax swappers. Or rather, sorry, he has one copy of the Tiona,
Yeah, and
which
I mean,
switches climax. And
even
he
if
does
he
have enough
doesn't get-
searching.
yeah, I mean, even if he doesn't get the climax, there's no real reason for him to aggressively search for it, right? He can just attack 3 times. He does have another bell still in hand. He can even replay the red bell, maybe side into level 0. He doesn't lose damage, right? Maybe even play a Pionkachi and boost the red level 0 bell to 4,500 power.
Yeah,
So,
it's also an option. And then it would win lanes. See, he's going to use the Hestian Knife during his main phase to add another bell. I think the fact that he's burning the knives now implies that he does at least have another climax in hand, so he can combo and get them back again. Which again is just really good compression, because it means that even if Alex wants to try and get on reverses going into the next turn, Dean will still have the ability to play knives, to just keep milling and potentially cancel more attacks.
yeah, and that's really the strength of Danmachi.
And again, he has so much draw power from the Hestian, the back row, which is draw discard when you play an event.
Yeah, okay, he's already putting him out.
Yep, so it tells you he definitely has it.
Yeah.
And
this is
he
the
has...
opponent where you just chuckle.
Yeah, and he has the level 0 bell in the back row as well. So not only can he can still deny one lane, of course. He's still leaving 2 lanes, which Alex can still get reverses on, but he can always deny at least one reverse from Alex still, which is really powerful here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just having the option and just having the mind game of your opponent needing to take the bell into account, it's already strong, right? You just play one card and effectively means that one of your opponent's climax combos is not going off. Just by you placing that card here.
Yep. So Alex finally getting yellow into his clock, but it's another level 1 combo that he takes as he levels up. Ooh, Dean also triggering 2 doors here, but Alex just eating the straight damage, which is really not good. Like, you want Danmachi to have the level deficit, not you. And as you like, the only benefit here to Alex being level 2 is that he does get to be level 2 and he can stand buying out level 3s, but again, like, Danmachi doesn't care. Danmachi is going to get over and just reverse everything. And you see there, the card that was just shown on your screen, the part-time job Hestia. It's another powerful utility piece for Danmachi. I think we saw him add it with the door. He triggered a door just now and he added it back. This card is not only hand fixing, but it's also milling and again, like, further selection. So that way he's not just relying on the events, but he also has these that he can just play as small bodies, gain some stock, gain some milling, and still, like, even if he loses his bells and can't get them back because he doesn't have Firebolt, he can still again keep playing the game, which is something that I think Alex is really struggling to do right now.
Yeah, and like you said, right, even though Alex hit level 2, which is usually the power, like that one level where they get the power play off for standby decks, because like I said, they can stand by the level 3s. The only real target that you want to stand by here for Ruby is the Pyra. And that one only really reaches like maybe up to 13 if you get 2, if you have a back row maybe. But yeah, if you have 4 Fireball in waiting room, the bell already gets stronger than that with the Pionkachi. So
yeah, all of the other level 4s that Alexander is playing all have on-play effects. So
yeah,
it's
so you don't really want to
ideal.
stand by them out, yeah.
Yeah, we see that Alex is going to play the Initiation Relic that you mentioned. It's going to give him a little bit of milling, which is not really that useful now that he's just taken like 6 or 7 straight damage.
Yeah.
But it is still some sort of filtering. It is still some form of selection. We do know that he does at least have the level 1 John combo still in hand, so he can still do something. But as we keep discussing, that bell in the back row is just going to deny 1 search, and Alex is going to get some extra damage in. And I think that's, if I'm in his shoes, that's what I'm thinking about here. Like, because you've seen, like, my opponent has just triggered 2 gates. They've got 2 climaxes in the stock. They've got 7 cards in deck. I'm going to force them to open a lane, and then I'm just going to swing to that open lane so that they have less opportunity to play knife and that they just take a bunch of damage.
Yep. That's definitely what you want to try here. Also, by forcing them to open the lane, you also do still deal 1 damage. So you're slowly chipping away at their health.
Yeah, and the way the mathematics and the statistics works out is that the earlier you play the knife, the less impact it has on whether or not you cancel. So for those of you who are interested, feel free to like talk to a bunch of other people on Discord. Like people smarter than us have done the maths, but basically, as you want it, like you want to knife in a way that it keeps as few cards in your deck as possible. And what Alex can do is he can try and front attack first, forcing Dean to knife us first, so that the knife goes in on the refresh and the 4 cards he looks at goes in on the refresh. Whereas if he knifes, say, at the last attack, when Dean only has 1 or 2 cards in, then that knife isn't going to go back in. Only 1 card is going to leave the deck, and he might be able to refresh with an extra climax if he hadn't. So Alex has to play around both counters and knife here to be able to see how to maximize his damage output. So down comes the Nadir, which again is another card that we don't usually see in Ruby lists, but it gives him a bunch of extra power. And when he's expecting Dean to combo off again next turn, which then gives him the ability to go to stock and recoup a little bit of advantage. But we do see the Pyrrha coming down, so Alex has completely abandoned the John combo, and he's just going to go straight into the Pyrrha and just get a bunch of power and get a bit of extra soul damage on, which is especially relevant because at level 1, Danmachi has no way of removing an early play other than play a Bell and get huge.
Which already is a pretty good way for them, though. I'm a bit of confusion is going on for me, though, since he did play the Nadir. So the middle character in the center stage, which at the moment is the John, is gonna get plus 1,500 power. So normally you would expect him to stand by the Pyra into the middle, right? So that she actually reaches the 13 that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. And so right now it's just 11,500 from its own effect, and then the John is getting the 1,500, which, let's be honest, 11,500 is pretty easy for a Bell to reach on its own.
Exactly. That's why with a Pionkichi he already reaches 8,500, right? So you definitely want to keep that number for Pyra as high as possible. And we'll see how it works out here for Alexander, since he's also not playing any backups in his list, not even at level 2.
Yeah. It means that if that Pyra goes, he's just going to have the hard Encore to keep it alive. And we see here, he's resolving the shuffle back of the Pyrrha, but I'd argue that maybe you don't want to be doing that right now because you're leaving cards in Dean's deck for him to go through. Like, you almost want to force him to refresh as soon as you can, so that he loses access to his search pieces, he loses timing for knife. Whereas by putting back these 4 or 5 cards, Dean's going to bounce something, but it also means that he's going to be able to use the Bell to clock one and bounce the hand, and he's going to have less chance of clocking a climax. But also, he's had 2 opportunities to use knife. Those cards that he searches with knife, they're going to actually get him closer to that canceling, as opposed to forcing him to knife on the refresh.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if you want to bounce here, and I think Dean is actually choosing to not bounce, since you have 9 cards in his deck, I think, from what he just...
He went from 6 to 11 because he put 5 back in.
Oh, 11, yeah. So
which is so much.
Basically, the shuffle back, like you said, just makes the knife event a little bit better or more rewarding to use. But we see Dean...
He's waiting until the last attack, or maybe he's thinking about doing it now, because...
Yeah, I mean, he has more than one in his hand, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with keeping 1 for the main phase, because you want to be able to abuse the draw discard of the Hestia, which is a once per turn. But definitely knifing sooner than later, so that you can get closer to the refresh. Potentially draw, refresh off of your draw phase, so that you have a fresh deck to knife through. I think is definitely what you want to be doing here.
Yeah, we'll see what he does here. Refresh damage will be taken, and it's a John.
Dean is taking a bunch of damage, but because Dean is playing a 1k1 every turn compared to Alexander's standby, Dean's damage output is just way higher. So he's still, even though he's going to refresh and level up going into his turn, he's still he's got a massive damage lead, massive cards lead, massive stock lead. Even if all these bells go to the waiting room, it's so easy for him to just rebuild the board.
Yeah, and I'm a bit surprised that Alexander's Yang lived, because I think it should have.
And that's one of the other reasons why I think shuffling 5 back with the Pyrrha was a mistake, because you don't refresh. SeiyoTennan doesn't refresh, which means, as we saw, he got the opportunity to pay 3 encore to get the bell back, which puts 2 climaxes out of his stock back into his waiting room. Whereas if you just swung for 6, you had 6 damage on. I think you had 4. You had 4 soul on the board. You needed 1 or 2 lucky triggers to get him to refresh. But like if you had gotten to refresh that turn without the shuffle back, he would have taken the same amount of damage, and he would have refreshed with 2 less climaxes into his deck because they would have been stuck in the stock. Whereas now, he's on 1/6. He's still got more than enough cards in hand and deck. He can just play a bunch of bodies, play 1 or 2 bells, and we saw him add 1 bell back with the Firebolt. And now he can just attack 3 times, refresh, and have really good compression with knives in hand on a refresh deck during the opponent's turn, which is a really bad position for Alex to be in.
Yeah, also having the waiting room still there also means that the Pionkichi event is active if he chooses to use it. However, it doesn't look like he is, but it's just a different another thing to consider, right? If you don't have a waiting room for them, that means 8 of their 12 events aren't gonna be as strong, or at least as unreliable. Yeah, so he's playing 1 Pionkichi, yeah.
He adds back another combo, which he's already committed the Hestius to the board. So I think he probably just wants to slow down. Yeah, he's going to attack with no climax, interestingly. I guess because he's all 8 out.
It's plus 8/5, so it is still stronger than the Pyra, though.
Yeah, so he doesn't need the climax for the power, because he gives it 4k from the Pionkichi, but the only downside there is that he's now losing some damage output. He's just swinging for 1/1/1. But again, he's so ahead on damage that it doesn't really matter to him. Triggers a climax on the last attack, which is a bit unfortunate, not what you want to see.
However, if he does get a climax to shuffle damage with the new rules, he can still salvage it.
That is correct, because he'll level up first, so this is where the new rules are suddenly starting to become very relevant.
It's a big brain play now. Get the climax to shuffle damage and then salvage it.
Alternatively, he's happy for it to just stay in the stock, because he's playing climax swappers. He can just drop the when he if he ever gets to level 3, he can just pay 1 stock and just add that that gate climax back to his hand.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, definitely the world is his oyster. We know that he has knives. We know that he has a level 3 in hand because he added it just now.
Yeah.
But he's definitely cruising here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he has 1 more Pionkichi as well. Oh,
not a climax going in. That's for 2 damage, which might level. Nope, a lucky cancel coming in. So Alex gets the 1 more turn without being level 3, but it is still not an ideal scenario for him to be in right now. Like, he's super far behind. He's, again, low on resource. He's got less stock, less hand, and he needs to find a way to make use of his energy.
Yeah, really, it's finally a cancel for Alex.
So it looks like he's going to hand encore to John. Which he has hand encore from the Blake in the back row. The Brainstorm does give the middle slot hand encore, but then again, maybe he should have put the Pyrrha in the middle so he could have encored the Pyrrha, because the Pyrrha is a better body, right? Like, sure, he has double John here, and he's gonna convince Dean to use one of the bell in the back row to bounce one to deny the reverse. But at this point, Dean now has a full deck of which to use to knife through. Like, you're no longer threatening the refresh pressure from the combo anymore. The Dean there is just going to pay 1, clock 1. Yep, get his plus.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw his fingers earlier, but he pointed 1 each to 1 John. So each one has an instance on reverse. So the middle one's not going to do anything, and the one on the side is going to on reverse search 1. So not a perfect turn, but maybe it could work out for him.
Maybe, yeah. We see Dean just slamming down the cards. As you do.
He knows he's going to take a bunch of damage. Triggering a choice. He's going to add the Pyrrha, looks like, to hand or the stock. So he's going to build a bunch of stock, which is relevant because, as we mentioned, he's a standby deck, but all of his level 3s do stuff when play from hand. So his turn is probably going to be like, he's going to try and get to level 3. I think he's going to try and push Dean to 2 or 3 this turn, and then play a bunch of level 3s and try and close out the game. But big cancels coming in from Seiyo there. He's going to stay on level 2 for a turn longer. He's going to be out of lethal range for Alex. And even though Alex gets a search, I don't know if there's much he can search for at this point to claw him back into it.
Yep. And regarding the placement of the Pyra, I mean, he did say that Alexander just recently or last year started the game, and playing round 2 of a tournament and immediately getting a feature match, it does leave a toll on your nerves, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't blame them at all, but it is definitely. And at the same time, like we've reached the situation where he's so far behind, and he's got so many climaxes out of the deck now. He's setting up for his end game with like searching for his ruby, which is the on attack, pay 2, ditch 2, burn 2. But at this point, the ruby's a heal, which is nice, but whether I don't think that Pyrrha would have made that much of a difference here. Like, Dean's only on 2-4. It's a 13k body with 2 souls, sure, but Dean's got knives in hand. He's got Pionkichis. He's got firebolts. He can remake the bells. He's got early plays as well that he can now use to remove the Pyrrha from the board anyway. So I don't think it's that much of a loss that he didn't save his Pyrrha.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would have been nice to have, but like I said, it's not needed. It did what it was supposed to do, right? He used the climax combo, and afterwards, it's really just a big beater on board. And I do think that Alex is not in as bad of a position as it might look. He does have stock. Maybe he needs a bit of hand, but against Danmachi, having the stock to attempt a huge finish turn is not that bad. Even though your entire game is not looking as good, maybe for you.
Yep.
The Hestia doesn't have that much reach. Even a triple Hestia, if you're rather compressed, will not usually kill you from 3-0 or 2-6.
Yeah, the only concern here is that Alex is already on 2-6. Down comes the 1k1 door combo from Dean. Gonna search for his Hestia knives, and this is 3-2-2 damage coming in to Alex, and he's probably going to be like 3-3, 3-4 going into his turn, which is very close to lethal. Plus, we see there, the little rookie bell on your screen that he played, the early play. It's just going to be a little bit of extra soul damage from Dean, just to like really put that pressure on Alex. And if he needs to, we see the bell in the back row, and we know that Alex is playing he's got the on reverse Glinda, the level 3, which is on reverse DL1. Mm-hmm. So that he can deny reverses on that lane as well with the bell. Alex does get a nice cancel. That's definitely much appreciated off the 3 damage swing.
Definitely, yeah.
So I think he can probably afford to take like 1 or 2 of these 2 damage swings, go up to 3-1, 3-2. Yep, so he's going to be on, looks like at least 3-1. If he can stay on 3-1 or maybe 3-3, he can still heal out of all of it and like stage a comeback. But again, SeiyoTennan's only on 2-4. Like, he needs I don't think Alex has that much reach to be able to get there. Like, he has the restanding Weiss 3-2, and he's got the Salem, which can burn up to X, but yeah, it's not a lot there. Again, the damage is just sticking non-stop. And
I think what you want to do as Alexander here is heal down, like you said, and then chip away a bit and attempt a 2-turn finish. So you want to let SeiyoTennan reach level 3 this turn, definitely. Hopefully maybe deal a little bit of damage, and then attempt the actual finish turn the turn after that.
Yeah, the main thing you have here, as Alex, I think the silver lining or the chance he has is that Dean's board isn't really that big, right? The Hestia gains 1k for each back row, so it's going to be 11-5 with combo, whereas you see the level 3 bells, they gain 1-5 for each marker. So that's currently sitting only at 9k. And as we know, Danmachi has no power backups. The other level 3 bell that Dean is playing in his list doesn't gain power at all. So none of Dean's level 3 engine threatens Alexander very much at all. So if he can make, say, a 3-2 Ruby or a 3-2 Salem and make it stick in any way, shape, or form, it's pretty much favored for him to keep his board alive.
Yeah. This is a rough situation. It really is. So it seems like Alex is getting some information about SeiyoTennan's deck and hard strength and climax and waiting room and such. So maybe he is thinking about attempting a finish turn, which is understandable if you're a bit desperate.
So down comes the first Salem.
Yeah, he didn't even clock, so probably doesn't have anything to heal, or not enough at least.
Bottom 5, I think he finds one climax, which the one damage is cancelled off the top, it looks like. So again, like all of his reach is all of his quote-unquote reach is just not getting there in this stage. So again, like
That's really
Salem's something that
rough
I
for
would have
him.
expected him to save for the final turn, when like once Dean compresses on the refresh, but at this point maybe he's just trying to like do what he can.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just doing what it can, sometimes in any game, there is a point where maybe you're just reaching for the stars, right? And it certainly looks like it for Alexander here.
Yeah, and all the extra stock that we saw him generate recently. He just paid 3 for the same. He's got 4 left. If he pays 2 for say a ruby, he needs to hold on. Like, he needs to find another costless character to swing with, so he can use the ruby's burn. Or same with Weiss. Weiss's restand is pay 2, ditch 2. So he's gonna either end up with almost nothing going into at the end of his turn, or he needs to put forward a slightly weaker turn here to be able to effectively have resources, assuming he can survive.
Yeah, I'm really unsure what he's gonna do here. I think Weiss isn't even that good here, since I think he only has 3 or 4 cards in hand. So if he plays 2 more characters to front row, he already won't have enough to use the ditch 2 characters condition.
Yeah.
But even a Ruby is also gonna need to ditch 2 cards. So he's gonna play the Ruby.
He's looking at the Glinda, it seems.
Yeah, salvaging the Glinda with the Ruby.
And he's just gonna play the Glinda. Okay, so he's, and this is awkward here, right? Like I said, the bell in the back row can choose to just bounce Glinda's opponent, so Glinda doesn't get their on reverse pay burn 1, which I guess it makes it easier for Alexander to make the choice. Like, does he pay for the Glinda burn or does he pay for the Ruby burn? And I think here he's definitely going to pay for the Ruby burn because it doesn't need to reverse. But the fact is, that Glinda came into play from the waiting room due to Ruby's effect, so he doesn't get the heal. Oh no, he adds the hand, so he plays it. I think he just forgot to heal.
No, he healed with Glinda.
Right, he did heal, right. So.
He did heal with Glinda. It's just we made the mistake, and
Ruby doesn't heal.
Early. Yeah, Ruby doesn't heal.
That's it. So he's gonna drop a standby, pull out another Ruby, which, again, the problem with standby is that it's not damage output, and when you're this far behind, you really need damage output.
Yeah, I mean, he can hope for the first 2 attacks sticking, then maybe, I mean, technically, right? If SeiyoTennan eats everything here, he could die.
Yep.
Oh, and he's immediately
the knife
grabbing
coming
4,
in,
so...
revealing blank 4 with knife is really good. And then draw 1, ditch 1 from the Hestia. Yeah. So much filtering here. And again, this is what we're saying about like the compression of DanMachi. He's able to just not quite guarantee its cancels, but get closer to its cancels.
This is really heartbreaking for Alexander, right? He did attack just knowing that SeiyoTennan was all out probably, because he dealt 1 with the Salem and then the 1 got cancel off the top. So really heartbreaking that he had the Hestia knife ready there, but of course that is to be expected.
I mean, yeah, we saw Dean salvaged a bunch of them the last turn and hasn't. Yeah, I think we've only seen him play 1 or 2 Hestia knives all game. He's definitely been holding onto them for the late game, which I think is very intelligent.
Yeah,
you just want to ensure that you get to your finisher as soon as you can.
Yep. I mean, there should be still 1 in his hand. There's 1 on clock. There's 1 underneath the bell.
Yep. Refresh damage comes in. It's a climax. So that is a small ray of sunshine for Alex. There is a chance. He just needs this burn on the Ruby to stick, as well as all the soul damage from his level 3s.
Yeah, and also triggering on both attacks.
Yes, he needs to deal
just
8 damage.
Yeah.
I think he needs to trigger on both attacks, because it's 2 burn from Ruby, and then 2 swings of 3. He needs he's going to pay for the Glinda instead.
I mean, this is cheaper, so...
It is, but it's also less damage. Like, even if he triggers a soul on both attacks, the burn one from the Glinda, that's only 7 damage total. He's not actually going to, like... It's not going to win in the game. Obviously the chance of Dean cancelling here is very, very high, but... There's an argument to playing to your outright, which is just to take the Ruby burn, which might actually win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean... Maybe...
He doesn't trigger anyway, so I guess he's trying to do as much as he can in this situation here.
Yeah, I think that's just basically what's his plan here. Just deal as much damage as possible, hope you survive the next turn, and then just vanilla swings for game.
The only problem with the deal as much damage as possible strategy is that, as we know, the Hestia level 3 does heal to stock on play.
Yeah.
And we know that Dean will get all of them at some point. He does find a trigger, but it cancels off the top.
Immediately
so,
getting cancelled.
Yeah, so the chances of Alex winning this turn were pretty much not there. And it means that Dean is going to clock up to 3-3, and he's then going to be able to heal all of it off with his Hestias, which is absolutely insane. So all that extra reach that Alex put forward, all those resources he burned to deal that extra damage, was more or less going to go to waste.
Yeah, that's really heartbreaking for Alexander here. Basically, it went perfect for Serio here.
Yeah, Alex doesn't have many cards in deck, so the Hestia might whiff is his only saving grace. At the same time, Dean is just getting his engine on the board. He adds one Hestia back. It's looking really tough.
It is, yeah. Obviously, as Alexander here, you just want to cancel. But, of course, the Hestia level 3 does have an effect. It just means if you cancel, you just get punished.
Yes.
Since it then burns too. And it can even give that effect to someone else.
Yeah, so if Dean wants to be intelligent with how he assembles his board here, he can definitely just ensure a lethal burn from just one attack. Hits 2 off the Brainstorm, that's also very nice. He can just search for more Hestias and just keep going from here, which I think is what he's going to do.
Yeah, the game is really going exactly how SeiyoTennan wants it here.
I guess there's maybe no Hestia in his deck, or maybe he has them all in his hand already, so instead he's just going to add the Climax Swapper, just to guarantee that he can get there.
And maybe even get there a second turn if he doesn't do it the first turn. Like, provided he doesn't have the Climax yet.
Yep. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about here is that, Dean is now playing very fast and loose with his stock, which means that, if he commits, like, say, double Hestia, well, actually, he can afford to triple Hestia here, but then he's low on stock for next turn, so that he might not be able to, like, say, re-salvage all the Hestias, or, like, Brainstorm and then Climax Swap as well. So maybe he's then relying on maybe 1 or 2 Hestia surviving, which, if he doesn't win, is probably not going to happen, given that all of Alexander's things are 10k printed and has a lot of power pumps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you play 3 Hestias here and don't finish, they probably just get reversed. And that means the turn after you either draw into them or, like you said, salvage 1 and then play 1. You won't get more, just because of stock issues. But yeah, I mean, Alexander is at 2 damage and clock, and his deck is rather thin, like you said. So the burn 2 cancel burn is actually really good here, since you can treat this as Alexander being at 3 damage and clock, basically. Since for refreshing the deck, he will get 1 and clock.
Yep.
And then obviously attacking for 4 and 2 are just really optimal numbers.
Yeah, and what I particularly like here is that Alex has presented a full board of level 3s, but then what Dean can do is, because the Hestia combo also gives Soul, he can also give +2 Soul to one of the Hestias, so it can side attack for 2 with the Climax, it'll be 5 Soul total, siding for 2, plus the burn 2 on cancels, plus the refresh. Like, he can very easily set up an exact lethal here.
Yeah, very true. And we did see the Climax swap come down. So he did not have the Pan's Climax, he did have the Gate.
Yep, but he's managed to swap into it. So
yep.
He doesn't have the third Hestia, which reduces a bit of reach, but I think 2 is still enough because, as I said, that's even the middle lane is still 2 Soul base, +2 from the Hestias. He can side a level 3 for 1, which is just absolutely incredible. But I think he's deciding the pattern here. Like, does he want to stack them all on one Hestia? Does he want to split them? How does he want to do this?
I think what I would do is just attack with the middle first. Since that one probably won't get the cancel burn, right? Since I think personally the
I think he's giving it all to middle. I think he's doing what I said, which is going to side for 1. Like, I also like the fronting with the middle lane here for just 2 first. But we see here the 3 damage sticks and he's not being punished for it. And so here, what he can do is now, he can front with the other Hestia, combo to the middle, and this attack for 3 is probably going to cancel. In which case he
side for 1 though.
Yeah, so he can do that as well. But this can, I think, he gave the combo to itself, so that burn 2 on the cancel just gets there, and yeah, that's going to be it. SeiyoTennan takes the win. Alexander just I think he just triggered one too many climaxes and just lost advantage of the game, and that was it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
that's
it's
going to
also
be
just
the end of round 2.
the strength of Danmachi into a standby deck, right?
Yeah, like any board that Alex tries to make, Dean can just so easily deconstruct it, while at the same time furthering his game plan with Hestia Knife, with Pyonkichi, with whatever. Like, all of his utility, he can afford to spend his utility to do everything else because his core game plan is so good at beating what Alex is trying to do with his deck.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, we
Yeah,
also
go for it.
saw the level 0 Bell just completely break the level 1 combo, so it was a really bad matchup for Alexander as a whole, I think.
Yeah, denying those on reverses while still, because we know that Ruby can put forward a lot of power on the offense as well, which means that SeiyoTennan would have lost all of his level 1 bells, but then by not only denying reverses on the Johns, he can also save his level 1 bells to replay again next turn to fight back against whatever it is that Alex might try to set up with his turn, which is, just really, really powerful. But yeah, that's, I think it's fair to say that game is a showcase of what exactly Danmachi is trying to do and why it's such a strong deck. And
Yeah.
you can just imagine against things like Mushoku, Dead Alive, quintuplets when it meant, quintuplets 2, the second booster just came out earlier this week, and unfortunately it's not legal for BRO yet, but it will be legal for a bunch of BCSs. You can expect very sort of similar things there. No matter how much utility you have, if you're a deck that's focused on building board and you're losing board every turn, that can only just end poorly.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So that is going to be the end of round 2. I am going to take a step back, and replacing me will be Nando. So Nando and Leon will be looking after you for round 3 and 4. And so, say hi to them just after this break. Don't go anywhere.